Right, who would like to join me in the karakia? Okatahau ki te toga, kia makina ki tuta, ai e whakatora I tio, I hauhua, ki hei ori ora. Thank you. We have two apologies for lateness from Councillor Randall and Wadera. And we have the minutes. Oh, sorry. I've got to move the motion for what? That will accept those apologies. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Apanowitz. Can we just vote on accepting those apologies? I think it's everyone. Right, thank you. Oh, Nicola, sorry, we haven't got you yet. You have now. Well done. Which makes that for, yeah. Naridan, if you're on the line, would you mind voting? Yep, no, we've got him.
I did. Yes, I did vote. Yep.
Okay, we'll make Naridan the yes. Thank you. It's passed. Do we have any conflicts of interest? No. Confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting. I move those minutes, and I have a seconder from Councillor Matthews. Can I just put that motion? Laurie, you're the laggard. And Nicola again, your soft fingers are letting us down, Nicola. Nicola, we're still waiting for you. Nicola, you've got to push harder. Cheers another finger. Yeah, well done. That is also passed. We have no items that are not on the agenda, and we have nobody who asked for public participation. So we can move on to the business. And I would like to ask James Roberts, I think it is, who is going to come and explain what their business is. Thank you, James. And Fars, I think.
Kia ora koutou. Good morning, everybody. So I'm joined here with Fars, he's the program manager for Tanaco. We also have Yeston here to help us as well, sitting in the stands back there, and also Scott from RCP. RCP is our project management consultancy that we're using across Tanaco Civic Square. So let me introduce this paper today. The Tanaco Civic Square Community Consultation Program paper seeks approval for public consultation on options to replace the City to Sea Bridge and the future direction of Tanaco Civic Square. None of the proposals for consultation commit the Council to any more funding for Tanaco above what's already been budgeted and allocated within the current LTP. The remaining budget in the LTP was an estimate of the minimum necessary spend to deal with the remaining earthquake-prone building issues in the square and to meet our regulatory requirements. As a reminder, the work in Tanaco Civic Square was necessitated by the earthquake-prone building rules in the Building Act. These are not nice-to-have projects. This is about council safely maintaining its core community infrastructure assets, and these key assets are ones that generate knowledge, cultural, economic and civic outcomes for the city. What we're enabling through the Tanako Development Plan is to ensure that this necessary set of earthquake-prone building remediation projects creates something of significant and lasting values for the city. The development plan identifies options on how we complete the remediation work in the square. The consultation will seek community feedback on two key issues: options for replacing the City to Sea Bridge and potential scenarios for further development in Tanako Civic Square. The City to Sea Bridge is structurally part of the Capital E building. Resolving the City to Sea Bridge, including Capital E, is necessary due to earthquake-prone building requirements, life safety assessment, and the risk of collapse on a key arterial route. Additionally, the paper seeks approval for reallocating part of the CapEx budget that's in the LTP for the completion of Tanako Civic Square, reallocating part of that CapEx to OpEx for the demolition of the mob building. The consultation will run from 21 October to 13 November, with oral hearings on the 22nd of November. A wide range of engagement methods will be used, including online platforms, print copies, drop-in events, public events, youth engagement activities, and mana whenua engagement. The feedback will be summarised and reported back to Council in December 2024. Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
Just a few. With the earthquake-prone building review work that's going through central government at the moment, what would the impact be of that on the City to Sea Bridge and Capital E building? Do we expect, if we didn't take action before that review comes through?
Kia ora, councillors. Regarding the Capital E, that review can have an impact on the extension of the deadline for the Capital E. However, the bridge is not a building, it's a structure, so it's not basically considered under the Building Act. It's an exemption from the earthquake prone, but it still is a significant safety risk to that road. So we don't necessarily have a deadline on the bridge, but we have to deal with it because the risk that it poses to the road and the emergency transit route.
Because they're structurally connected, for all intents and purposes, it's the same structure.
Okay. And just want to pull this out because there's been media reporting that it's $65 million to demolish the bridge, where that's obviously not the case. It's $65 million to demo the bridge, Capital E, and associated groundworks. Can you just spell that out nice and clearly so we've got that? Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah, that $65 million was an estimate for basically completing the remediation challenges in Tanako Civic Square. So that included the basement, which is the Civic Square, the square part itself in the middle. It includes the Capi building and the surrounding elements of structure with that, so the ramp and the bridge, etc. as well. So all the remaining pieces.
Yeah. Last question, just are you able to give like a rough breakdown from that 65 mil of what actually is to the bridge, even though I get it's one structure itself, just for clarity, so we can come out of this and actually say the cost to the demo for the bridge are X?
Sure, it's approximately 30 million.
30,
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Paddock. Sorry.
Thank you. Look, I did just ask a clarifying question, but because I was just wondering if we could combine the consultation with the LTP. So you're saying if we don't do the consultation now, that will hold the town hall work up for 6 months or so, and that will incur cost?
Yeah, that's correct. So we're in a slightly fortunate position that work has proceeded well on the town hall and also on the demolition of the old civic admin building, the CAB building. And what that means is that from a scheduling perspective, we now need to move on resolution of the Capital E building, because elements of the Capital E building create structure of the side of the basement that goes down to the town hall and supports the town hall from a service perspective. So if you can imagine around the back of the Michael Fowler Centre, there's a drive that goes down and into to the town hall basement, and equally from Harris Street, there's another driveway that goes down to the town hall basement. So if you think of those two driveways, the walls surrounding those on the seaside are all elements of that Capital E building structure. So if we are going to deal with that Capital E building, it will impact those access ways into the town hall basement, which means that until we've dealt with that building, we won't really be able to use the town hall. So we're on a reasonably tight schedule now for resolving that.
Okay. Look, I've read the Q&A. Obviously, I'm still a little bit confused about why we need to consult on things like the Jack Islet Green, which have been consulted on a number of times when we don't have the money. And this could be years away. We go round in circles in the city, like we just, we keep over contentious sites. So I'm just wondering if it's going to be that helpful.
Kia ora, Councillor. We're not specifically consulting on Jack Islet Green, but in terms of the master plan, is a number of scenarios which one of them is like maximizing the greener space or increasing the commercial activity. And we anticipate that lots of people would like to increase the greener space, and Jack Islet Green will be part of that. We are not necessarily specifically focusing. The questions that we are asking through the consultation is around the entire precinct and the entire approach to the precinct, rather than asking a specific question around the specific buildings, including Jack Islet Green or Maikawhala Centre.
Okay, so we don't have the money at the moment. Are you suggesting that the money will be put in the next LTP, or?
If there is a strong desire for something that is not allocated within the budget of current Tanako program, then that's something that we bring back to you, and we will tell you that public has a strong desire for XYZ, and that can go to the future LTPs. That's
okay. And just the last question, just a little bit contentious. Generally, as I understand it, it's better to keep a building than to demolish it. So I was just a bit unclear about why that meant our climate and waste policies to demolish something that was already there. So it's just a consistency point of view.
Do you mean mob?
Yeah.
That is correct from a carbon footprint of the building. However, again, it's a controversial issue. So you can actually design a new building that has a lower carbon footprint in the long term, comparing to retrofitting a building for millions and millions of dollars. That probably doesn't have that kind of, if, for example, we have a new development on Cabot Mob site, that would be most likely greener stuff 5, 6, or 7. So it would be the reason I specifically didn't unpack this, because it's a very complex kind of scenario and depends on what's the new building versus the existing building. We're still negotiating with precinct properties in terms of what building they're proposing there. So that new building can be way more climate friendly compared to a retrofitted mob. However, mob, has a lot of embedded carbon footprint within the concrete, and that's why I emphasize on the waste minimization. Similar to CAB, we do go through a really extensive process of recycling all the materials that we have, and that's what we have in front of us to address some of those carbon footprint issues. But in terms of the new building, we don't know yet.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Young.
So with the seawall, so if the bridge decided to demolish the bridge, if it's decided to demolish, the bridge, presumably and the seawall is part of the structure, do we have to rebuild the seawall?
Not necessarily. So we had a discussion with our engineers around that. So in the scenario of demolition, do we need to strengthen the seawall? The strengthening of the seawall in a scenario of demolition will be significantly less compared to the strengthening of the bridge and then a strengthening of the... So, for example, if I want to put it in terms of the layers of rock, if you want to strengthen the bridge, you have to put 5 layers of rock in front of that seawall to hold that bridge. However, if the bridge is gone and that lateral force against the seawall is disappeared, then you may need just only 1 layer of rock to protect that seawall and protect the road.
Okay, thank you.
To just put it in I'm not a structural engineer, I'm just trying to
but it's okay because I'm not either, so it's good to have a layman's description. Thank you. So just another thing, the council has at times been criticised for coming out with gold-plated options when sometimes, if it was our own property, we wouldn't. Are all the options in here, excluding the demolition ones, but the ones for rebuilding the bridge or whatever you call it, are they all gold-plated, or are there any reasonably cost-effective ways that we could keep the bridge if we wanted to, if Wellingtonians wanted it?
So we've obviously thought and worked long and hard on this question because of how many people love the bridge. But the reality of the weaknesses and the earthquake-prone nature of it are inescapable. And so really it's a question of, well, is there any possible scheme that would enable us to remediate it without and enable it to be structurally sound? And we've had a number of different engineering organisations look at that and peer review, etc., the work that's been done. And the net of it is that the best or the kind of the cheapest, most viable solution would be in the range of $90 to $120 million if we were to try and fix it. So we don't think that's a reasonably practicable option given the other financial constraints that we're facing.
Okay, so just one more question, which is, I think one of the things that people really love about the bridge, or I fail to see why, are the wooden sculptures and artworks and stars. I like the stars. Would we be able to, if it was decided to demolish the bridge, would they be able to be relocated somewhere so they still remain a feature of Wellington?
Kōrau, Councillor. So considering that we expected this question, and I think a lot of councillors, they want to know about the artwork, we had meetings with every family member of different artists. So we have 4 artists on the bridge. There's the writer's walk first, the panels, and then there is the paramashed, the wooden structure. We have 2 Matt Pinner's sculptures at the bottom of the bridge in the square, and we have a number of benches, and also we have Revi Thompson's pyramid on top of the bridge. We have met the families of all 4 artists, considering all of them have passed away. In the process of relocation, that really depends first on the family and their desire. They don't make a decision, we do make a decision, but we seek their advice in terms of what they would like to happen with the artwork. We have a public art policy, so we go through that policy and every single option. We have discussed this with the public art panel in terms of the relocation of the artworks. So we have gone through a long process to see what are the options. In terms of that specific artwork, the wooden artworks, we discussed that with the family. There's 2 major issues with that artwork. First is design for the bridge. Is very contextualized and tells a specific story. The second one, significant part of that artwork is not in a state to be relocated, is basically rotting. So it may require some repairs. What we will do, if the council make the decision to demolish the bridge, we consider all the options, again, go back to the family, to the public art panel, we go through our policy and come up with options in terms of relocation or decommissioning or return of the artwork to the family, which is one of the options. And then we come back to you and we will inform you of that decision.
It's got one following on from that. So under the bridge, the Writer's Walk, there's one under the bridge behind chicken wire. It's my great uncle.
Yeah.
Do you think we could release him from behind the chicken wire and put him somewhere else?
We will go through the same process for all the artworks.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I don't think we should release any of her relatives.
Lock them up.
Councillor Calvert.
Our office, could we delay this consultation? Because the reason I ask this is because just yesterday, as elected members, we discussed where we could make savings, and Tanaka Civic Square came up. So what would be the impact of incorporating this into, instead of standalone, but into consultation around an LTP amendment?
I think the key challenge is timing. So, as I was explaining before to the councillor, we're on quite a tight schedule now with the work that's being done around the town hall and Te Marapi, because both of them utilise that basement and require that accessway from Harris Street. So we really, by the beginning of next year, we really need to be engaging work on that piece of land there. Otherwise, it will impact the timing of the opening of the other buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Free.
So I was going to ask a sort of similar question to Diane, but from a different angle. Just so we've got it on the public record, you mentioned that we're ahead of schedule on the town hall and cab demolition, is that right? Is that saving us money? And so do we want to sort of keep that momentum going?
With all these estimates, there's an element of risk, as we're well aware. So what we're doing is we're trying to minimise the likelihood of, or rather maximise the likelihood that we'll come in within or under budget by moving these projects as fast as possible. So yes, there is absolutely ways for us to diminish risk and hopefully not use contingency elements of budgets if we can get on with the work. And as an example, the crane, the 160-tonne crane that was used for the demolition of cab, if we wait for some period of time before we start on the mob demolition, that crane will go back to where it came from, and then it will have to be brought back again, and that will cost us around about $750,000. So that's the kind of expense that we can make sure that we don't incur if we move quickly on these things.
Yeah, okay. And I have another question, if I may. Sure. So I noticed in the preliminary views that we had of the two options that they weren't quite comparable in the angle that they were taken from, and also the one that had the possibly new bridge in the future didn't show clearly that there was still a road. It looked like a plaza. And I'm just wondering if we can absolutely make sure that the two scenarios in terms of the artist's impressions are presented in a very comparable way, in terms of it being clear that where the traffic is in both remains in both scenarios, and there was a bit more greenery in the one with the bridge, but that was only because it was presenting a slightly different angle. I just want to make sure people are not kind of led to think one might be preferable than the other on reasons that really aren't actually true. Thank you. Can I have some reassurance on that fact?
Absolutely. I mean, since you raised that issue, we instructed the architects to do the exact same render of the two scenarios, exactly the same. So one, it will be exact same angle with the same level of vegetation. One has a bridge and the other one doesn't have.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Councillor McDulty.
Yeah, sorry, just a few more. I found that breakdown. So what I was trying to get at is the 29.9 million. I know we've called the City-to-Sea Bridge in the capital E the one structure, but it was whether there was any ability to, within that, apportion a element of that to just the bridge itself, or is it just they're so interconnected that you cannot say that the bridge aspect is, say, 1/3 of the cost, 10 million, and capital E is 20 million?
It's very difficult to separate the three from each other because you can demolish one of them without the other, but we end up with half a structure in the city, which looks very strange and probably cause safety risks. And therefore, we have to basically consider them all of the together. Some of them are structurally connected, so we have to consider them as one piece rather than splitting them. And that would cause further cost escalation down the road if we split them into portions.
Makes sense. Can I suggest that we make, when we're talking about this in terms of comms and public, that we very much refer to the demolition of the City-to-Sea Bridge and Capital E building, and those two are always linked, because I think there's been we've just called everything City-to-Sea, and that's driven some of that communication around cost. Can you just explain to me the rationale of debt funding the OPEX on this? Because obviously we allocated 65 mil CapEx, there's 8.3 for mob, and why we're bringing that into the operational side now?
Certainly. So the Tūnako set of projects have evolved over time. The initial assumptions were that if we were to either strengthen or demolish mob, if we were to strengthen mob, that would be a capital cost. If we were to demolish mob and build something in its place, that would be a capital cost as well. However, because of decisions that we've taken, we chose to make the cab mob space available for private investment, right, and reactivate Tūnako Civic Square without it all being our money and use private sector money as well, right? So council made that decision. Because of that, the demolition cost will not then result in the ownership of a new asset for council. Therefore, under a technical accounting rule perspective, you can't classify that as a capital cost. It has to be an operational expenditure cost. From a cash flow perspective, it's exactly the same thing. We've got the cash, it's debt funded. It's debt funded as CapEx or debt funded as OpEx. It's basically the same thing. So it's really just a technical accounting interpretation of how that is booked.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. And I think I just heard before, so in the consultation, we're saying the rebuild option is more than 100 million, but you're saying that range is 90 to 120 million, and that's a quotable range.
Yeah.
The 90 to 120 million dollars is for a strengthening of the City to Sea Bridge.
Yep. Cool. Thank you.
I actually have a question, which is actually related to the very first one, because it does seem to me that one of the most controversial issues around this is going to be whether we are doing all of this demolition work on the basis of a technical ruling around earthquake risk. And I mean, if the government was to actually alleviate those rules, which seems possible, or if not even probable, if we just do nothing, in 10 years, we could end up with the same structure still sitting there, couldn't we? I mean, I'm just trying to work out whether we're doing the whole demolition work based on a technical requirement as opposed to a real requirement.
It is a safety issue for the public and the emergency transit route. As I mentioned, the bridge is not a building, therefore is not a requirement under the Building Act to act. We don't have to. It's a duty of care for people and the safety of that critical road, that if that bridge collapses, it can have a significant catastrophic impact on people's lives.
But I understand that, but if you said, okay, well, we'll just live with the capital E earthquake risk and hope that the rules change, because obviously nobody's going to die if the capital E falls over, and we're now going to worry just about the bridge, and we're just going to whack up some steel bracing under the bridge to make sure that we at least offset the risk you've just described, because I do understand that the bridge falling down the road could represent quite a major problem, both in terms of anyone who's underneath it at the time, but also for traffic, given it's a critical artery. But if we weren't worried about capital E, because we hoped the rules were going to change, and we didn't think it was going to be a risk to life and limb, could we do some modest cost level of strengthening to actually mean that the bridge problem was alleviated?
I would like to ask Scott from RCP, probably he can give you a more technical response to that.
Thanks.
I think that just repeating back your question, if we weren't worried about the risk to life and limb, but I guess that's the thing, we need to consider the risk to life and limb of what these structures, are implicit within these structures. We're aware of what the risk is, and there is a genuine risk to life and limb as they are used in service today. So we are aware of that risk, and it's on us to do something about that.
Cool. I'm probably just going to answer the end of that question first, which is, could we just strengthen the bridge and ignore capital E?
Yeah.
We're still working through the final cost estimates at the moment, but we're looking north of 30 million just to do the bridge alone if you ignored capital E.
I guess we'll come to that point of the debate, but yeah, thanks for that, Councillor Pannett.
Sorry. So that's a helpful question. So we are looking at building another bridge, maybe, and that would be cheaper?
Correct. So we've done quite a lot of investigation into building a new bridge. Hamilton City Council has built a new bridge, very similar scale to what we're talking about here, and they finished that project in 2022. That bridge, if you go and Google it, the Peacock project is a very beautiful bridge, and it's been worked with the Monowhenua, Waikato Tainui. That costed them around $8 million, so we had a chat with Hamilton City Council. If you consider that we will build a new bridge in 2, 3, 4 years, that would probably will be twice the price of that bridge that Waikato built, and that will be around $16–17 million, which aligns with our QS estimates for a new bridge.
That will all be clearly outlined to the public?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
So a new bridge is almost half the price of strengthening only the bridge, not the seawall and capital E.
Councillor Young.
Sorry, I just got a bit distracted. But just tell me, if the bridge is such a threat to health and safety, lives, etc., are we still allowing people to walk? Are we still allowing people to walk over the bridge?
So we have done a life safety assessment, and the life safety assessment clearly states that the bridge is safe to be occupied as it is until 2026, when we are planning to either demolish or remediate the bridge.
How do you make a calculation like that? If it's a health and safety risk and has to be demolished, surely we should be out there tomorrow.
So this is very similar to what we've done on Michael Feller Centre and Opera House. They're both earthquake-prone buildings, so we've done occupancy safety assessment. The engineers will go through a probability analysis of what is the risk of such an earthquake within the next 3 years or 5 years, and then they argue that basically the benefits of the bridge or the building is this much, and the risk is this much, therefore you can keep it open for this period of time. This is my kind of simplistic understanding of the assessment.
So would you send your children over the bridge?
Absolutely. I don't have children, but yes.
What about your mother-in-law?
Yes, absolutely. I don't have that either, but yeah, sure.
Councillor Free.
Yeah, just a question about the future bridge. Now, you did mention 5 layers of strengthening, rock strengthening to support to brace the lateral movement with the current bridge. Would a future bridge, if the public actually want us to spend the money that way, and if we actually could afford to, would it need that level of strengthening? Would it need the 5 layers of rock, or would it be able to be built in a way that didn't require so much lateral strengthening?
Yeah, we have considered that, and if you can see in the images that the new bridge is oriented towards Tūāpapa, not against the seawall of the lagoon. So it lands on the St. John's Lawn, which probably a better landing ground condition compared to right against the seawall, which removed that requirements for significant improvement to the seawall.
Okay, thank you.
That looks like it, unless, no, nobody's got any more questions. Oh, we've got one last question from...
Could you please put up the amended some substantive, so that if there are any questions on that, thank you, we can ask that. Could we also table the Q&A?
Yep, sure. So does anybody have any questions about the latest version? I don't think there were a couple of late changes which weren't in the version that was circulated by me yesterday, which I think are
on F.
About the artwork. Yeah.
Yep. E and F have been added in. Thank you.
Sorry, just with 7B, so that was the point I was making earlier, bridge demolition, but we know that that actually includes capital E building within it as well, so this is where I was hoping we could get some clarity, the public, so we've said 7B, bridge demolition 30 million, but we know that's bridge plus capital E building.
Yeah, can we actually maybe change the words on that? I think that's a good point, actually. It's what are the 3 structures? Sorry, you've got bridge, capital E, and is it the seawall? There's 3 things: bridge, seawall, and capital E.
James, did you get that? Did you get that comment?
Sorry,
just on
apologies,
7B.
Chair, I didn't catch that one.
Okay with that?
Just the amendment to 7B to clarify the 30 million thing.
What about the causeway? So, yeah, that runs around the back of the Civic Gallery.
Yeah, that is included into the structure.
Sorry, are we, just because that's saying everything's being demolished, but is remediation a better word, so bridge, seawall and capital E?
That's correct.
Yeah, so James, just the council's asking, is 7B accurate? So in terms of what we're trying, what the intent of that is.
Yeah.
So let me just clarify. So when we estimated the 65 million, it was on the assumption that we had multiple very high level estimates at the time. to do with the cost of strengthening v. The cost of demolition. The 65 million was the cost of demolition, right? So what happened with the basement is we've already progressed that piece. We looked at the options and we discovered an option to strengthen it that would, in essence, fit within what we had allocated as the demolition element for the basement.
Can I suggest?
Is that understandable?
Can I suggest we maybe before, after, when we take a brief adjournment to just check that wording of 7B?
Yeah.
Can we be sent all the things? Because, yeah, all in one go.
Okay, so we'll just have a short adjournment now to amendment. So now if we've got, hey, Ray, we just sit down and get a wriggle on? Thanks. So we've now got slightly tweaked up amendment, and if anybody has any questions about the new words, could they please raise them now?
Chairman, would you be able to point out which words have changed?
Tien could tell us that, perhaps. Do you want to just... There's just been a small adjustment to 4A, which is really to make it clear that with the LTP amendment process that we're about to embark on ASIP, that there could be further changes as a result of that. So we're just highlighting the fact that we're not in a completely locked down fiscal envelope situation. What was the other change? That was related to 7B, where we just, which was...
no, 5 has changed?
Oh, sorry, 5 has also changed to make effectively the similar point. And that if there is any desire on the part of the public for a new bridge, that is not likely to occur in the immediate future. And then 7B, which is Councillor McNulty's point, which was that this $30 million cost isn't just in respect of the bridge, it is in respect of quite a large number of structures. And there's remediation work in respect of the seawall, so there's a mixture of remediation and demolition work.
Slightly pedantic that where the capital E remediation and demolition, so I think it's the seawall that needs remediation, is that correct? So
we've listed all of the projects,
and then
Deputy Mayor, and described that some of them will be remediated, some of them will be demolished, and some of them will be remediated and demolished.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Padowitz.
Just in the consultation, there is another bridge which comes through from the Michael Fowler Centre. Do we want to just add a word existing bridge, maybe, just to clarify it, or is there any, what sort of scope around that? Yeah, in the consultation it comes across from, yeah.
Sorry, excuse me, Councillor, do you mean the one next to Harris Street that goes over to Frankitts Park? No. Okay.
No, the one that comes off the concourse from Michael Fowler Centre.
So we have two kind of options for a new bridge if there is a desire for a new bridge. One depends, and the scenario depends on the decision of Michael Fowler Centre. So if there is a decision to strengthen the Michael Fowler Centre, the design of that bridge goes around the strengthened Michael Fowler Centre. If the council make a decision to demolish Michael Fowler Centre and build a new building, we probably recommend that new bridge to be incorporated into that new building. So it's basically a new bridge depending on what happens to the Michael Fowler Centre. It's not two different bridges. It's just same, yeah.
Any other questions, observations on the amendment? No? Okay, well, is there any debate? Does anyone wish to raise any points or... Oh, sorry, I'll move the amendment. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Matthews? We just... Okay, so now we're on the table. So now has anyone got the observations?
Well, you can speak to me.
Well, I would just like to say that this is a good example of the councillors working together in a highly collaborative and positive way. And I hope that Simeon Brown is watching. Councillor Free.
I would just like to say that I think we're obviously being put in this position because the bridge isn't safe, and if it were safe, we would not be here. But when I considered what it would be like without the bridge, I could see some advantages. The bridge isn't particularly accessible. You have to go up steps and you have to go across some, boards. It's got a lovely atmosphere and it's nice to be up there, but from an accessibility point of view, an at-grade crossing is likely to actually be more efficient. And the other thing, I think, is that we will get views that are currently blocked by the bridge that will link the Civic campus back to the sea more effectively. And I can see how this, not having the bridge there, would actually not be a bad thing. I really feel that if people do want a replacement bridge, we need to be, the consultation document needs to really explain that it's highly unlikely, given what we now, that's the situation we're currently in, where we're trying to find capital savings. It's highly likely that would be a priority anytime soon, but at the same time, if they do want it, we could ensure that we don't rule that option out as something that could be achieved in the future. And the other thing I think people do care about a lot, and I'm glad that we've alluded to it and will allude to it in the consultation document, is the artworks, which are quite unique. I didn't know what to think of them when they first arrived, but they've grown on me over the years, and they are obviously valued by our community, at least some people really value them. So I think that being upfront about the fact that we'll be exploring options to relocate them or to return them or to maybe incorporate them differently in some other parts of our city is a really good thing. And people might actually have suggestions around that. I think it would be a totally appropriate thing to ask people to comment on if they could if they could foresee other ways in which they could be used. So I'm happy to go out to consultation on this. Of course, it's something we wish we weren't having to consult on. We don't love the fact that our city is so earthquake prone and we've got these structures that we need to address, and it costs money, but I'm happy for this one to go out to consultation. There's a big advantage to us in doing this in a timely manner, in that we can, projects we're already committed to, that we don't want to see budgets blow out on, if we address this in a timely manner, we can take advantages of some of the gains that have been made on bringing those projects forward and hopefully saving some money on some of those really big ticket projects we're working on in Civic Square.
Thank you, James, Faz, team that have been working on this. It's a good consultation, and today it's been really a valuable Q&A. One day I'll get over the town hall. I'll probably be fully grey and on my deathbed when that happens, so I'd rather never spend another cent on Te Ngākau if we could, but regardless, I think the plan through here is as prudent as we can possibly be, and I appreciate the time taken to clarify and just dive into that cost breakdown, because the way that this has been initially picked up by some media and reported that we are spending $60 million on demolishing a bridge has driven some understandable concern from people, and the fact that that is actually not the case, that we are spending $30 million, and within that is a raft of projects: capital rebuilding, the City to Sea Bridge, remediating the seawall and sorting the walkway as well. It's really important to stipulate that, so I'm just glad we're able to bring clarity to that, and I'm glad we'll keep the artwork and we'll be able to put it somewhere else, but let us continue on with spending the bare minimum possible in regards to the future of Te Ngākau.
Deputy Mayor Foon.
Yeah, kia ora. Thank you for the work, team. I know that it's been a big job, and I do want to acknowledge that it was one that Council did have a priority to help Te Ngākau have a strategy and a plan and come to life. So it's good to see that we've got something on paper to go out to the public with. Councillor Free, you did well. You took all my lines for this kōrero, but I think I do just want to really acknowledge the artworks. And for many people, the artworks and the bridge are one thing. And actually, then I understood they weren't, but actually after what I've heard today, they actually are. They're designed for each other. So I think what we are going to get, so it's really important that the artworks go into the consultation document, and a good description of our process and how they interlink. So thank you, staff, for putting that in there.
But I do think we will have a lot of remorse from Wellingtonians. The bridge isn't just a bridge and artworks. It is experiences. It is children playing in the cubbies. It may be your first kiss or your first activist camp. But either way, the bridge represents a lot of things for Wellingtonians. And especially for me, I think as long as we can put Laura Sedman's great quote about Wellington somewhere really, really special. It's true, you can't live here by chance. You have to do and be, not simply watch or even describe. This is the city of action, the world headquarters of the verb. And boy, have we seen that in the last few weeks. Kia ora.
On to Councillor Matthews.
Yes, I just want to acknowledge that there is a balance to be struck with these engagements between, you know, we have to meet our legal obligation to provide options. And even while some of them, you know, there is an element that there are sort of quasi-options at the moment due to the work that we need to undertake for to cut capital expenditure. So I have been very annoying to James over the last few days. Do we really, you know, in fact, over the last week, do we really need to consult on a new bridge? We're not really going to build a new bridge anytime soon. And I kind of understand that there is a legal obligation to provide some alternatives to the public and listen to what they have to say about that. But I guess, you know, and I thank you for your comments, Deputy Mayor Foon, about the memories. But I guess keeping things as they are, and I know you agree with me about this, is sometimes not an option at all. And it's often not the best option. And we, as a city, I think, have been quite bad at acknowledging that. And I do like to think that better things are possible, and they are possible here. So I remain quite excited about this process and the ability to transform this space without a lot of investment from the City Council. And it's about looking forward and bringing people to nice places to hang out that we haven't built and haven't, you know, because we have plenty of other things that we need to do, and also we need to not spend money doing it. So I still remain very optimistic. I want to thank the team, James, and the people involved for the important work that has happened in reining in costs and time to mean that this decision is so important that we make today. So that's actually kind of a good news story if we can look forward and enjoy our memories, but we can't keep everything as they were in our memories, and that's an important step as well. Thank you.
Councillor Paddock.
How appropriate that I follow Councillor Matthews. So look, I just want to start by just reaffirming that obviously that enhancing the centre of our city has to be a top priority. It's been sad since 2013, and we've lost a lot of time and lost a lot of ability to celebrate our city because of all the earthquake-prone buildings in Tūāpapa. So it is really important that we keep going ahead with the project, and there are some good thinking in here. I will, however, be that voice from the past because we have had massive fights over this. Putting commercial buildings into a public space, I think, will remain contentious, particularly taking away green space, which is in quite short supply in the central city. And, you know, it is a civic space, it is not a commercial space. And so obviously I will be keener on maximising the green space as a general principle. In terms of the bridge, I am genuinely open-minded on this. I know that people will love it, but also I do see the magic of being able to traffic calm the quays. If we have an at-grade crossing, that will be amazing. So that is quite a difficult one. I think it also does highlight that the earthquake-prone building legislation is nuts. We're just now encountering far too much cost. And even though I've been a strong proponent of a safer city, we just can't keep spending all this money. We just can't afford it. Just my last point is, look, I am a bit concerned about the process. I get that we need to talk about the bridge, but we are asking people about scenarios which are interesting and exciting and important, but that could be a decade away. And because of the history of this council, we've had some of these arguments before. We haven't been able to resolve them, partly because of cost. And so just having a consultation, I think people get a bit confused, to be honest. So maybe just, if I could just finally say to the Chair and the Deputy Chair, maybe working with staff just to really get the communications tight, that really the primary purpose of this is around the bridge, and that we will continue to have conversations about the future of Te Ngākau.
Thank you. I'll just, given that nobody else seems to put their hand up, I will make my statement. First thing is I'm a big fan of public consultation, so I think that the public consultation on something which is a real iconic piece of Wellington infrastructure is desirable, especially in the context of the overall precinct plan. So I agree with your point, Councillor Pennant, that we do need to make sure that our consultation is, or our communication is clear, but I actually do like the idea of public consultation, because certainly my email inbox has showed that a lot of people are very interested in this project. Just to talk about the square itself, I remember 25 or so years ago going into the Civic Square when it was first done and thinking this was by far the most impressive piece of civic architecture in New Zealand. And anyone who's been into the Aotea Square in Auckland or wandered around Cathedral Square in Christchurch would, or let alone the Octagon in Dunedin, I think would agree with me that actually this was an absolutely genius space. And what always amazed me about it was that I never saw anyone else down there. It was utterly sterile, and the council over the years tried things like putting in a massive sand pit and putting down that bit of grass, AstroTurf, so that people could kick a ball around. It never achieved anything as in vibrancy. It was a sterile space, and I think that what we are going to end up with out of this, and a part of it is because of what we're doing today, because I think opening up the Civic Square to the waterfront is going to be an enormous boost for the waterfront and for the Civic Square. But I think the public-private partnership model that we've embraced with precinct properties, and who knows what might happen with ILOT, that little orphan park that nobody ever uses, and as I said, I'm the last speaker, and of course, and a plug, and I think the NZSO moving into the town hall, and I'm desperately keen that we get the music school of Victoria University there as well. So I can see us ending up with a very, very vibrant, as well as architecturally meritorious space. The final point is about the nature of this spend. We have inherited a problem, and so people who blame this council for profligacy and whatnot are actually being very unfair, because what we are doing is recognising a problem that we have inherited, and that we are just the guys who have to write the cheque, and nobody likes to be the person who has to pay the piper, but we are in that situation. I've had a chat with James, and he is willing to organise for any councillor who wish to have a tour of Capital E, or you are going to have to wear your hard hats and sign a liability disclaimer. But I think it would be worthwhile for people to actually just have a look at what the earthquake risk physically actually looks like, because I have no doubt at all that this is a significant earthquake risk, and there's nothing like confirming that with your own eyes. So I hope you'll take up that offer. So I'm disappointed, of course, that we're spending $60 million on the overall project, and it's about earthquake strengthening. It's just a problem we've inherited, and I'm glad that we have the balls, if you like, to actually get out there and fix this problem. Public consultation is good. Well, some of us have got anyhow. and as I say, I think we're going to end up with something a lot better out of this than what we started. So anyhow, that's the last word. So if we'd like to vote on the amendment before I really go off the deep end. The whole thing? Everyone okay with the whole thing? Like, Okay, can we all vote now? Thank you. Councillor Abdul-Rahman, we're just waiting for you. Yeah. Thank you. That is unanimous. And now we have the decision register updates and upcoming reports. And that is going to be, am I? Are you?
Yeah, sure.
Liam.
Thanks, councillor. So taken as read. Any questions?
No question? Oh.
I'm sorry, in my excitement over the main paper, I forgot to look carefully at this. Are we having something about the cycleway, the cycleway is coming to us fairly soon? You know, our cycleway program and how we might respond to the new challenges and that.
Yeah, and I think also, Councillor Free, that was to do with the NLTP impacts as well. So
Yes.
Given our LTP amendment, we're going to bundle all that so you can see the whole and not make sort of isolated decisions.
Okay.
But I haven't yet received advice about when that will occur, but we're trying to organise that now.
Would we be able to perhaps have a workshop or some
But
other?
that's absolutely intended as well.
Okay.
But, yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Could you just explain what the annual Te Ata Kōrau report's about?
So back in the day, there was a climate emergency. There still is. And we have a program of work that includes the climate response team doing a number of activities and supports to the community and initiatives around climate adaptation and climate resilience for the city. So the report will come back and reflect the progress of those projects.
Okay. Would it be possible to put that's about the climate action in future?
Just to clarify the
the meaning of that. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, we'll move on. So I'll move it. Will anyone second it?
I'll second.
Second. Would anyone like to debate it?
I would like to speak to just say that we have a Māori language naming policy that is part of the policy of the council. I am finding the tiresome questions every single week. Actually, there are very positive statistics about people using and learning Māori names for things. And I actually do not want to have to put an explanation in. We know what Te Ata Kura is, and if not, we can Google it and not waste staff time again and again every week to object to the use of the Māori language by Te Kaunihira or Pōneke. And if you don't know, that is us, the Wellington City Council. Yep, let's do that too.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. I just wanted to ask those questions because it's my understanding that it's council policy, and this is from officers, it's council policy to make sure that the things we describe, including in the forward program, are understandable to Wellingtonians. And it is not policy that it is okay to simply have items listed in Te Reo. I'm certainly not against Te Reo, but I also want to support the 95% of Wellingtonians who do not yet speak Te Reo. And it's in that information level that we should always be helping to communicate to the public. Thanks.
Councillor Paddock.
So one of the problems with this country, I think, the many, it's not actually the Wellington City Council, is that we are still monolingual, the majority. Actually, it's pretty common around the world for people to speak more than one language. And I personally try and practice learning other languages. That takes time out of my week. It is very clear what Te Atakura is. We have had it in place for some years now. As Councillor Matthews says, it is not it's easy enough to use Google, and I would strongly oppose staff going away to look at this. I'd also point out that actually the Māori language is actually growing in strength, which is an excellent thing. Now, I see there is some concern that the Māori, that Māori speakers, it's not increasing at the rate that it needs to be. So when we come in here, we need to be supporting the language every chance that we can get. It's such a beautiful language. Why would we not want to, apart from anything? So I think, yeah, we do need to stop these questions and just remember that learning is a lifelong endeavour, that it doesn't finish when you finish your formal education.
Thank you, Councillor Pettit. I'd just like to observe, of course, that our Takahiri partners are not at the table today due to decisions of some of the councillors last week. Councillor Chung.
So can we please stop actually politicizing again and again?
I wasn't pointing to you. I was asking Councillor
It doesn't matter who you're pointing to, but don't politicize this. It's very important.
Councillor Chung.
Being multilingual, I understand what it's like to speak different languages, but I do support my colleague, Councillor Randall, and I think that when these words are spoken that I don't understand, I just, if I don't understand them, I don't understand them, and I just ignore them.
Okay, Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, I just briefly wanted to speak to the point that I think as elected members, we do have a responsibility to help disseminate information into the public, and I think it could be really beautiful if we extended that to helping the public understand Te Reo Māori, and I personally do see that as one of my responsibilities as a councillor, and I think there is a way forward here where we can actually help our community come along and understand the beauty of Te Reo Māori. Instead of trying to stick to just one language, we really can sort of share the beauty of multiple languages and really bring our community along on that journey instead of assuming that they're not able to do so. I think our community really is able to learn these new things. There's a massive appetite to do so, and I think it would be becoming of us to all help lead in that effort.
Mayor Whānau.
I would like to kindly suggest that we move on from this debate, if that's okay. I think the last 24 hours has been really good, and let's not bring this down. We've actually made a really unanimous decision today. Great decision. Views have been aired. Let's move on.
Shall we vote on? And Ben's not here. Oh, that is passed. Thank you very much. And that is, sorry, Karakia. Should we do it in English? No. Okay, no, okay. Naka, Kitina. Thank you.